now we are at the second part of week 5 for our discussion for the prince. So we now moving to chapter 8. So I will give you a quick overview for chapter 8. So in chapter 8, Machiavelli continues to discuss the methods of gaining principalities, and that is saying that a private prince can rise to the position of a prince from a private state, if you like. But it is unlike in chapter 6, the prince becomes reaches his position not through virtues, but rather through wickedness or cruelty, as he calls it. And it's also unlike chapter 7. It's not through fortune, or it's not like someone else is getting him to that stage. He sort of reached it through his own efforts and his countless hard work, if you like. And then, however, in this stage, Machiavelli doesn't approve such methods, and he says that if this brings the person power, it doesn't bring him glory. And if he's compelled, and if this cruelty can be justified, it can only sort of to bring order to the society, or like only can be justified if it's needed for political security or self-defense, if you like. I'll now pass it on to Zain to discuss the history part.
So as Hanin kind of mentioned, we'll be discussing more, instead of, kind of princes or people already rising to power, we'll instead be discussing, more kind of private individuals who kind of rise to power. So the first one who we'll be discussing is Agathocles of Sicilian. So he was, born into an average family, like many other people were at the time, into a family of potters, I believe. And, he joined the military at a very young age due to, although he started off as a potter, he already had political ambition from a very young age. So while he was a part of the military, that kind of allowed him to pursue, multiple aims by communicating with his higher ups and all that, which eventually led to 2 attempts where he tried to overthrow the oligarchy. And yeah, after that exile, he kind of, went and he began to kind of affiliate himself with like mercenaries and, more private militias, which he enlisted the help of to later successfully overthrow or take down the 600 oligarchies. So following this, most individuals would think, he's kind of like taken power and he's going to kind of stop there and chill out for a bit. But instead, what he ended up doing was campaigning against the oligarch supporters and anyone else who could potentially stand as not even a threat, but, a similar level of power in the future. So he eventually, over the span of a few years, killed approximately, I think it was 10,000 oligarchs, oligarch supporters, and other individuals who could have, stood in his way, including ordinary citizens who he saw posed as a threat. And using this method, he eventually crushed most of the opposition or potential opposition in the region, including other Sicilian Greeks and Carthage. And if you look at kind of the military tactics behind it, he was quite, I don't know, in my view, he was quite like intense with it. He ended up using, a lot of kind of back routes going through Africa to reach Carthage. And even though they weren't kind of directly posing as a threat, he went on the offensive to, I guess, consolidate his power, even though they didn't really threaten him in any way. So next is Oliverto of Thermo. So he was raised by his uncle and was sent to serve Condottiero Paolo Vitelli, and he fought in a number of battles, including, fighting Pisa for Florence, and, multiple other battles under Vitelli. But those two, him and Vitelli, were later accused for treason, and Vitelli was executed, but Oliverto was spared. So from here, he wished to take Thermo. And what he did to take Thermo was, instead of, a traditional kind of assault where he'd amass a military or something like that, like a normal prince would do, because they have kind of that military power. He instead decided to gather all of, the political and military, I guess, mights in the region. And from there, he was able, including his uncle, and he assassinated all of them. And from there, he was able to become prince. He later captured Romagna for Caesar Borgia, kind of establishing ties with our favorite guy. But then after a few complications with Borgia, including conspiring against him, Oliverto and those who he worked for were all killed by Caesar. That is it for the history.
I don't know, I feel like this is a pretty kind of straightforward sort of chapter. In a way, it kind of links from the last chapter in terms of the two strategies that he presents now aren't durable or sustainable. And there's a lot of work that goes after you gain the principality to maintain it. So it's not as easy as the first principality where you gain it through your ability because you have the trust of your people, whereas in both the second and third ways to gain a principality, you don't have the people on your side. And so it's more work to kind of keep everybody afterwards.
It was quite interesting, kind of talking about, that implication in the modern day, kind of taking that, I guess, more direct assault approach, if you want to put it like that, with, kind of in the kind of information age that we're in, kind of people like constantly being bombarded with information and all that is kind of, I guess, an attack in itself. And that's a way that a lot of people, even like, a lot of people think about, these really giant, either governments or like those big kind of businesses. But really, like, you see, like, a lot of people these days, ordinary people, even at really young ages, like, early 20s, holding a huge influence over other people just because of, some sort of information that they're able to spread, which I thought was a very interesting, I guess, kind of draw in between the modern day and what Machiavelli was talking about.
Unfortunately, I mean, he kind of says that someone who takes this route is not necessarily being clever, because to be a murderer, betrayer without faith, pity, or religion is stupid. And I feel like because religion has been taken out of the picture in this modern day, a lot of people do take this route willingly, of course, because they think it's necessary for them to create a face for themselves almost. Machiavelli makes it very clear in this chapter that he does not support this kind of tactic of gaining power, and that he says that this is only a method which is out of necessity. But I don't really understand what the necessity of gaining power is.
I think I understood it also in a way that, is he kind of saying that in the pursuit of power that the ends justifies the means, like meaning that he can do whatever it takes to get that power, and that if the result is good, then the way that you go about it is also acceptable.
I don't know, because then he goes and defines a good way of being wicked and a bad way of being wicked. So I don't think he's saying that you could do anything. I think he's saying that you need to be tactical about how you get to the end.
Because it can backfire, because I think he does mention how it, like, most that use cruelty and the crime side of things to get into power usually don't last long.
Because he also talks about like that you have to hand out benefits or like keep the people happy, and I think that's also refuting the whole ends justify the means, because otherwise he wouldn't want to make the people happy still.
Yeah,
I saw it like because I sort of like highlighted this point where he says it might brings you power but it doesn't bring you glory, which means like he's sort of more advocating of using so to speak legitimate means or like lawful means from his eyes, or like something like avoiding using inhumane or wicked methods. because like, and I think this is like, you can sort of also apply it in a more personal level, if you like, because, you know, we can always, reach our goals or achieve our goals or whatever sort of attempts, or like, gain whatever career we like, but we can do it the legitimate way, and we can go the illegitimate way, or like the unlawful way, if you like, or the unpermissible way. So I think you can take it this way, like, Machiavelli is not condemning being ambitious or trying to reach power or to gain that power, but is condemning the method or which path you take, and you need to be sort of considerate of the outcome, especially in the way how he describes it. This is okay. You're gonna in the end, you're gonna reach the end. You're gonna acquire that power. You're gonna become a prince, but that's not gonna gain you glory. And in our scenario, it's like, it's not going to gain us prosperity, because we as Muslims, we always keep that in mind. Because like, okay, if we are trying to achieve a goal, we want to make sure, we are ensuring our prosperity in the hereafter as well.
He emphasizes the fact that we need to make sure that the citizens are safe. So the people around you are safe in whatever you do. So even if you use wickedness, the end result of that wickedness is to create this environment of safety, whether this be a false safety or a true safety, depends on the people. I mean, he gets into that in other chapters, but it's interesting how he says that if you continue to be cruel, you will create this atmosphere where your citizens don't feel safe, and this is when you create a bad principality for yourself rather than a good principality. So I feel like we can, again, if we go back to a modern kind of context, we see this happening all the time, where we have spaces where we think they are safe. And so we can do what we want with them, but they're not safe in real life, but they've been created in such a way which we think they are safe. So social media being a prime example of this.
Well, another interesting thing is what he say about the people who supported Oliverto, because how he attempted to go to Thermo, and what made him succeed in his motivation is exactly what he says. Those to whom slavery of their country was dearer to them than its freedom or liberty. It depends, maybe you have a different wording in your version of the book, but I found that this is interesting, because if we look at the definition of liberty or freedom, for us, being free from our desires, being free of being attached to this worldly desires and the worldly matters, if you like. And if we had sort of due to our personal gains and due to our personal ambitions, if you like, we might sometimes attach ourselves to certain individuals and help those individuals achieve their motivations. And so, like, if you look in this examples, because the way how people, saw themselves, and they saw, like, through joining Oliverto, if you like, that's going to help them achieve their own goals, led them to this, and like it's led to such massacre. I'm not saying that the existing state, so to speak, that he conquered was better than the new state, but just the way how like sometimes these movements it happens in society.
Yeah, no, I think we could take it a step further and look at the definition of slavery. If we look at it as someone who follows their ego.
Yeah.
So now it turns into you've sacrificed your akhirah for the dunya kind of thing now.
Exactly. Yeah. So it wasn't the main point in the chapter. It's just the way how he was expressing his point. But to me, it was like, whoa, yes, exactly. Like, unfortunately, certain people, become big and, reach power and reach position just because they got the support of people who thought, it's going to end up, achieving or, helping them achieve their own agenda. and like as you said, because they got this for these personal gains and their desires. Yes, let's join this group. Let's join this troop so we can reach to what we want to reach.
The people who supported him, other than the troops of had the troops of Vitellozzo with him, and then the people from Fermo who supported him were those who wanted to gain favor with the church mostly, because both Oliverto and Vitellozzo were working for Cesare Borgia.
Yeah, it's
so
interesting.
I don't even know if they were doing it for like religious purposes or like they believed that they were helping and doing it in the name of God. It's such a strange dynamic to have such politics and religion like
exactly. Yeah, you see like how it was like mixed up for the people. And it just amazed me how like he used Cesare Borgia to like create this like chaos in his discussion, and then at the end he got killed by Cesare Borgia.
So I think it's like a kind of, the religion plays a big part in politics, and how people like these leaders can actually get to the people's hearts through religion, for example. And I think why he kind of used like the Pope and Cesare Borgia and Alexander and stuff to try and get to the people, maybe. And the power that religion has over a lot of people's hearts is a big thing for people. And I think that's been happening right through the ages. From like, even if you relate to, for example, Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, most of the opposites, the Abbasid, the Umayyad and stuff, they all tried to come in the religion of Islam. We are, the cousins of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. So I think religion plays a big part in politics, that people kind of they want to disattach it from politics. Yeah.
And that's not right.
Yeah, because if you're looking at our like leaders and prophets and stuff, most of them were actually in like parliaments or leaders that and they created politics, they created law from our own Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then Amir al-Mu'mineen, when the people had no choice other than going to him to create that law and to basically make the Islamic country again stronger, and they needed that leadership, they went to that. So it shows that the people that try to mislead the people in the name of the religion, and the people that actually follow the religion that can be politicians and rule the governors and principalities, or you can call it whatever you like, but it does play a big role when it comes to religion and politics. And yeah, it's wrong that people trying to disattach that from that.
Yeah, I mean, people don't understand that the foundations of, say, Western politics is ingrained in Judeo-Christian kind of bases. Like, there's a reason why, say, you can't murder or all this kind of thing. People think this is common sense, but no, it's based on religion, and these laws came from prophets. Maybe manipulated along the way, but they're already from prophets.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That actually reminded me with I think it's a saying of Imam Ali that says, I quoted it here somewhere. It says, "Ad-din ussun was-sultan haris," as in the religion is a foundation, if you like, and the let's say the government is a protector for this foundation. فَمَا لَا دِينَ لَهُ فَهُوَ مَهْدُونَ. So anything that without religion obviously is destroyed. And مَا لَا حَارِسَ لَهُ فَهُوَ ضَائِعٌ. So like whatever doesn't have a protector is basically lost or cannot be protected. So this shows how like religion and government, if you like, goes hand in hand. They cannot be separated.
And then you have those people that in the name of religion destroy the image of religion and the government at the same time. And I think that's what gets a lot of people kind of confused. Like, all right, well, you're religious, what are you doing in government? Or or your government, what are you doing? But entering like, or going into subjects that are not in your field. And I think that's how they're manipulating people's brains, hearts, and trying to separate the two.
Yeah, that's all due to misinformation. Because if we take a look back at chapter 7, when Machiavelli addresses the point where people need to be equipped with knowledge, with ability, with experience. So when the fortune comes to your door, you're equipped, you're ready, so you can take that skill, you can take whatever that fortune brought to you and upgrade it and take it to the next level. So if we just say like, oh, I have nothing to do with politics, or I have nothing to do with this field, or I can, this is none of my business. Then if the days passes and then that comes to your door, you're not equipped, you're not prepared, you cannot do anything with it. So you don't know, you need to be prepared, you need to be aware of the dynamics and what's happening around you as well.
من لم يعرف إمامة زمانه مات ميتة جاهلية.
Well,
So if you have any knowledge and that comes and knocks on your door and you don't know what's going on, you're basically lost.
Exactly.
This is the end of our discussion on how to gain principalities through wickedness. Thank you for tuning in. And next week, inshallah, we will be looking at how a civil principality is gained and maintained. I hope to see you next week.